This is the Horse Radio Network.
Hey, you're listening to Adulting with Horses, the best place to be if you can't be at the barn. We are your co-hosts and equine authors, Heather Wallace and Natalie Keller-Reinert. As crazy horse girls, we don't take ourselves too seriously in the saddle or out. We celebrate the things that make us different. Join us as we talk about horses and pop culture and get a little weird in a fun way. Thank you for being a little weird with us.
Hey, it's Natalie, and we are Adulting with Horses again. I have Heather with me today, and we have an awesome guest along with Heather and myself co-hosting. We have a great author named Will Grant, who is a contributor to Outside Magazine, among other things, and he just wrote the coolest book that is like in this weird fixation that I have with historical trails that I'm never going to ride because it's scary. So he actually did the full Pony Express trail with 2 horses, and I can't wait to share their names with you, Badger and Chicken Fry.
Oh my God,
and
amazing.
So amongst other things, Will has done some absolutely insane things on horseback, and his book is coming out this summer. It's called The Last Ride of the Pony Express, my 2,000-mile horseback journey into the Old West. But what we're going to talk about today is getting out of your comfort zone with horses, because Will certainly did that, and I know Heather and I have done some pretty insane horsey things too. So
welcome, Will.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we're always really appreciative of people who do things that are scary, because I know for me, I don't like to do that. So I'm impressed by people who do.
I mean, there's
I thought that you and Will might have something in common.
Pardon me?
Well, I'm sorry. I said I think that Heather and Will might have a lot in common, because not only have you been to some of similar insane places, but also Heather's super interested in endurance riding, which is so far out of my comfort zone, I wouldn't even be able to consider it. But you've kind of done like ultimate endurance on your end.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, Will, I think it's kind of crazy. Mongolia, you might ride out there in the wilds, but riding across the Pony Express Trail, you kind of run into some real life situations.
Yeah, I mean, the comfort zone was left behind from day one, and Mongolia is totally different because it's like the open steppe. And from St. Joseph, Missouri, where I started, is like middle America, and it's not very good country to ride a horse in.
There's a lot of highways and a lot of truckers out there.
That's right. And like navigating the urban infrastructure on horseback is not fun, but doing it with a pack horse is particularly difficult, because you really can't control that pack horse. If it wants to jerk you out of the saddle and run off, basically it probably can. And so the role of the pack horse becomes a lot more significant than I anticipated, and it becomes very significant when you're dealing with like semi trucks running down a foggy highway at 70 miles an hour. I mean, that was scary. And I put a orange triangle like you see on the back of tractors. At first, I was wearing it on my back, but then I realized that people couldn't really probably see me because of the pack saddle. And so I put it on the back of the pack horse.
Like on his tail?
Like on the packs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, up
Hazard.
on the packs.
Oh, I was thinking of, sort of like the tail ribbon conversation we've had, Heather, where, bring back the tail ribbon in the show ring. And so we could just put caution triangles on the backs of our horses instead of ribbons. That would work.
Yeah, but like, so Will is, Will, I'm very familiar with St. Joe, Missouri. My family is from northeastern Kansas, and actually, my dad's hometown is next to the Pony Express station there in Washington County. So we go there all the time. But the semis on that road, when they come at you, your whole car buffets. So I can't even imagine what that was like on horseback.
Yeah. It was the worst in the rain, because not only are they going fast, but there's like this cloud of water vapor behind them. And really, I tried to pick highways that had a wide shoulder, and I could look at it on the satellite images. And I was never afraid to detour if it looked like I could find safer travel, you know. I crossed over interstate highways and under interstates, but I never was on the side of the interstate. But some of those highways are just as dangerous, you know. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I drove across there a couple of years ago, and like through Marysville and stuff like that in Kansas.
Yes.
And what the speed limits out there are insane. And they're
Insane.
2-lane roads.
So this is hard place
Was there ever
to
a
ride
moment
horse.
where
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I would not. I would not.
No. I'm not gonna talk. I love it when there's 3 people because we all have so much to say. Was there ever a time when you were just like, no, I have gone too far. I have made a mistake?
Not really. You know, I really said we are going to California. I mean, we are making this happen. And I made a deliberate effort to maintain my morale and my focus, and it actually worked. You know, it was like almost like meditative in the evenings to be sitting there telling myself, you are going to California. And I was determined to. And I had 3 horses here at home in Santa Fe that I could have delivered to me if one stepped on a nail or whatever else, you know. So I never really
So
wanted to
slight
turn
difference
back.
between Mongolia.
Yeah. Yeah. But one similarity with Mongolia could be that there were horses available to me along the Pony Express trail. I'd meet horsey people or a ranch where they'd have 15 or 20 horses, and they'd say, if you run into trouble, call me, and I'll bring you one. And I'll keep your horse here as long as you need it. And in Mongolia, you can find horses
I hear
like
that a lot
throughout the
about long
country.
riding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
I know.
long riding,
Yeah, go ahead.
like you're saying, Heather, like any other game, I guess, where you have to boost your confidence constantly. It's not just your own mental game, but it's your support network, right? And I guess as horsey people, you have one that's kind of built in, whether you're in Kansas or Mongolia.
Totally. Totally. Hospitality from people along the way was amazing. And I think the horses had a lot to do with it. If I was just hiking through, I don't think people would have been quite as open-armed. But since I had chicken fry and badger, people cared.
Did you ever get a big group of people kind of coming out and saying hello and just cheering you on and ask if you needed anything? Because I think that's something I would do if I saw somebody riding or heard that they were coming through. I'd be the first out there to be like, hey, how's it going? What do you need?
I did have some of that. And people would know, like like if a guy is coming through with 2 horses, everybody's going to know it. You know, even in Mongolia, if someone's traveling a long distance by horseback, the word travels ahead of the rider. And so people would come out and like have a bag of cookies or like beef jerky, or they would ask if I needed anything, grain for the horses a lot of times. So people met me, but never a big crowd, and I pretty much tried to keep a low profile as I went from town to town.
Well, and in Mongolia, I mean, I don't know if I'm sure this was your experience too. Sometimes we'd have riders coming up and just inviting us to their homes. No need to speak the language. They'd kind of wave you over. And sometimes you wanted to stop, and sometimes you didn't. You felt quite rude not doing it.
Stopping is always a good idea in those cases.
So what was the pace that you set for riding like the Pony Express Trail? I mean, at the Mongol Derby, I know it's a race to the finish line. For your long ride, what were you mostly walking?
100% always walking, because you really can't trot a pack horse for very long without trouble, without the packs loosening. And the saddle it's very difficult on a pack horse to trot it. So I walked always, unless the horses were like fired up because of recreational shooters in Utah, and they were like doing the piaffe. They were like trotting in place. This was very bad situation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But and then I
the jiggity jog.
Yeah, not fun. And then in Kansas, to get ahead of storms, I ended up having to hurry a little bit. But I always walked.
What time of year were you in Kansas?
May 5th through May 16th.
Okay. So a little ahead of tornado season.
Yeah, but not by too much, because one night in Nebraska, 13 tornadoes touched down in the state while I was there.
Wow.
That scene freaked me out when I was reading that. I'm a big storm buff. I want to go on a storm chasing vacation with experts, but I do not want to run into that whilst riding horseback across the countryside. Not by day, not by night.
No, I've been in a car. A horse, no.
Mm-mm.
No.
That's always the worst part for me. I love storms, but I hate that I have to worry about horses in them. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. So I made a really diligent effort to never be caught in a storm by paying close attention to the weather religiously.
Oh yeah, you and me with our weather apps, we get along just fine. I'd be like, did you check this app? Because this app looks freaky deaky.
Yeah.
Well, Natalie is basically a amateur meteorologist. So
I am
next
fully
time,
an amateur meteorologist.
Yeah, next time you need to bring her along with you as part of your planning team.
Oh my God, I could get a van with all the monitors.
That would be very useful.
I'm a photographer.
Let's
think
pick
we
a
have
trail.
a team. We have a team. I can do photos and videos for social. I'm just saying.
Oh,
there
man.
You go.
Look at that. A beautiful partnership was born.
Well, really anything for me to avoid being on horseback for that amount of time. I love the idea of riding endurance, but long riding is a totally different vibe.
Yes.
I don't know. The walking vibe kind of appeals to me.
I do like that too. Yeah.
I don't know about the camping vibe. But to be fair, I have zero experience camping. I camped one time. It was in Stock Island, which is the island across from Key West. And it stormed, of course, that night and flooded our tent. And we had to go and hide in the bathrooms. And that is my camping experience.
Well, I didn't camp until I went to Mongolia. And then I spent 12 days in a ger. And at least I had a ger because, with Mongol Derby, you some nights you're sleeping out under the stars.
Oh my
That's
God.
right.
I just assume you'd wake up wet, and I feel like that doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
Is that wrong?
No,
well,
some hard mornings for sure. Both on the Pony Express Trail and in Mongolia. But you just got to be strong.
Yeah, the weather shifts pretty quickly.
Gotta be strong. I don't know if I have it in me, to be honest.
I know I don't, but I like to be on the sidelines and part of the team, but not actively the team. I have a question, Will, because I'm a bit of a planner, and I have no idea how how much work goes into planning for something like this, the Pony Express Trail?
So there was a point. So I began the trail on May 5th. So all through that winter, basically from the first year of the year, I started thinking about it. And I realized that there is no way to plan like 2,000 miles. It's just too far because you don't know what your progress is going to be. So I was like, only thing I can do is plan the first like 150 miles, 2 weeks. And then by then I'll have some kind of rhythm. I knew the general trace of the Pony Express Trail, but as far as where I was going to camp, I was like, this is just way too big of a logistical job that may not even play out. But what I realized is the most important part of planning and preparation was my kit, the pack saddle, way to boil water. Like I had to have that very lightweight and absolutely dialed in. And like the routine for when you get to camp, I would hobble the horses and then set up the electric fence around them immediately because I was so scared of losing them, right? This would be the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you lose your horse, you got nothing.
You got nothing. You're going to have to go find help. So I had this routine of I would get to camp. The horses would just have walked 20 miles. So they were hungry. So if I put them on grass reliably, they would drop their heads immediately. I could tie up the bridle reins to my saddle horn. And then my hobbles were a 6 foot length of cotton rope. And I just figure eighted it around their front legs. And then put a quick release knot. And so I would do that to the saddle horse. Then I would do that to the pack horse. And then immediately unload the packs and break out the electric fence and set it up around them. And then once I did that, it was like, okay, we're secure. It's like tying up the boat for like getting to the dock.
You're probably hoping after 20 miles that they're not going to wander. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question that, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you really quickly about eating during the day. Like, did the horses eat during the day? Because I've kind of always wondered, knowing that horses like to be eating almost 24/7, how that works when you are on a really long ride. Like, do you pause and give them grass breaks, hay breaks, grain? What happens?
So I didn't carry any grain. I didn't carry any supplemental feed, but I carried treats. I would try to buy a bag of treats and each night give them one treat. But I really didn't stop. Once I would try to ride for 8 or 9 hours straight and try to leave at like 6 in the morning, depending on how cold it was. And then I could get to camp by the middle of the afternoon. And so that not only allowed me plenty of time if something went wrong, but also for the horses to eat and then sleep and then eat again and then sleep again. So I really didn't. But one thing I did do, and I learned this in Mongolia, is that when a horse drinks water, because I would water them during the day if possible, when a horse drinks water, it needs to mix that with some like source of salt to aid in hydration. So when you water a horse, you should let it graze for a few minutes. You should let it get some grass to mix in with that water. It can help. That's why like endurance riders, the endurance riders use electrolyte paste and stuff to help the horse hydrate itself, metabolize the water. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you bring any electrolyte paste with you as a supplement just in case you got to an area that wasn't too grassy?
I didn't. I carried a tube of Butte. That's it.
Yeah. I think every horse rider should have that. What did your camping look like? So like at night, what did you do? Were you just kind of sitting under the stars, reading a book? I mean, how did you relax? Did you relax?
He stared at his horses.
I did. I would stare at my horses. I would set up the electric fence and then I would I would put my saddle blankets, I had a felt saddle pad and a woven Navajo blanket, we call it, on top of that. And I would lay down the felt pads and then lay the blankets over them and lean against my saddles. And then I would make coffee and tea and eat dinner, and I would literally hang out with my horses for the rest of the day, and I would take notes and think about the country I was passing through and the people I had met, and I was totally relaxed. I always had this like anxiety of finding my next campsites and the unending chore of planning, knowing where I was going. But I was totally relaxed, and I slept like a baby every night, and to sleep with the horses was so nice, to wake up in the middle of the night and hear them breathing right next to me lying down. What a unique window into being with horses.
That was one thing in Mongolia. It took me a while to get used to, was the horses grazing outside the ger, or outside where I was sleeping, and trusting that they wouldn't trample me in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
I think that's what I need, actually, because, I had another one of my 2-hour sleeps last night, and maybe I should just go plunk myself down in the shed.
Yeah.
Get some white noise.
I cannot trust either of those horses not to trample me, so.
They don't really
and minis hurt more than you would think.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really want to step on anything, much less a human. What you'd have to worry about...
No, I think Ben would paw me.
He might. Or if like a raccoon
he would beg her
dropped
for
out of a
treats.
tree,
Yeah.
And the horse spooked over the top of you.
Yeah, now we're thinking like horse people. Yeah, the romance is dead.
I'm more worried about my horse. He's a thoroughbred and has no clue how big he is, so he's always trying to be in my bubble. That's the one that, if I were to lay down, he'd probably lay down with me, and then when he got up, I'd be crushed. But but what a way to go,
No, yeah, horses with no personal space.
Just to be
I trust
clear,
the smaller horses.
So just to be clear, I slept like right under the electric fence. I didn't sleep in the pen with them because I didn't want to get trampled.
Well, I have a really funny story, not to digress too much, but a couple years ago, we were at an event, and it was like a blessing of the animals. And one of my friends was a retired police officer. So he had his retired police horse, and they set up a little electric fence, temporary corral. And the younger horse heard a motorcycle and literally, I've never seen this before, walked straight into the electric fence and just kept walking. Like he was trailing the tape with him. And oh my God. So I've seen it happen. And every time I go to an endurance ride, I'm thinking like, they're going to stay?
Yeah. So
I've heard of horses like that. I've never had one, thank God.
I had a horse run through an electric fence. I trained horses in North Texas, reining horses, and started colts for like 7 years. And I had a young horse run straight through an electric fence and just keep going one day on her first day there. But so I don't know.
He said.
Yeah,
well,
it was a 2-year-old filly. It was a 2-year-old filly that a guy wanted to shoot off of. It's like the most insane job I've ever had, but that was fine.
Well, it looks like she could take a hit and keep on kicking, She.
But I'll say
she
one
might
thing
be the one to do it with.
I'll say one thing is that Chicken Fry and Badger were the right kind of horses to do this. They were like really sensible horses. They really look where they're going and are very aware of their surroundings. And Badger, that horse is so sensitive, he can be difficult to catch if he's worried. So this is a good horse to cross the country on because he keeps himself out of trouble.
So whereas my horses just ran away from their shed.
Did they?
Idea. They did. I'm like, where are they going?
We're talking about electric fencing. What's happening? So, Will, were these your horses, or were they horses that you picked just for this event? Yeah,
I bought both of these horses specifically to make this ride. I owned 2 quarter horses at the time. And one was too lazy and the other one was too young. She was too green. And I bought a Mustang that turned out to be a little too small, but I still have him. And then I bought Chicken Fry from a guy in San Angelo, Texas. And I bought Badger from a young woman in eastern New Mexico. And I bought them specifically for the way that they handled these kind of situations.
I gotta imagine.
Horses you had to kind of chase down, if I'm recalling correctly, right? Like he'd had a couple of owners, but they were recommending him to you.
Yeah.
So you had adventures in planning.
I did. It took a ton of time. And so, you talk about sleeping well at night. I couldn't eat or sleep for like 3 weeks before the trip. I literally couldn't sleep. And then once I started riding, I was it was a huge relief to have finally begun. I started eating again and I slept well like from then on.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I roll. It's the anticipation. Right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It'll kill you.
It's the what
ifs. Yeah. I used to. So my big step out of my comfort zone was when I was 30, I moved to New York City and started galloping horses at Aqueduct. And
great.
They weren't the nicest string of horses, but they were, it was something I needed to do with my life and I hadn't done it yet. So I went and I did it. And
boy, that's great.
Sick. I mean, I tell you, it was great, but it was horrifying at the same time. Like it was a terrifying experience, but
you did it.
Well, because I loved it when I was doing it. Yeah. But like every morning I would get to the barn and I'd go into the shed row and the assistant trainer would be like, Natalie, you're green. I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. She'd say, get on a horse. And the trainer would be like, what's wrong with her? The trainer was from Trinidad. He was hysterical. He'd be like, what's wrong with her? Get her off those horses. And his wife was the assistant. And she'd say, no, she'll be fine. As soon as she's mounted, she'd throw me up in the saddle, take a breath, just fine. I had to get on the horse to feel like I could ride the horse, because when I wasn't there, it didn't make any sense. Like I lived in Brooklyn, I was writing articles, I was doing this whole other thing. And then at 4:30 in the morning, I was getting up and taking the train to Aqueduct. And so it was like the split in my life was so large that every single day was the first day. And there were a few horses that like the first time I rode them, I got off and I cried because they terrified me. Yeah. And I just go into a stall and cry.
Sometimes we need to do
really
that.
Good that you did that.
I remember.
Yeah. That's a hard job,
Yeah, she talks a good game, but she can ride a horse, I'll tell you.
That's the thing. Like, I can ride a horse, but mentally, I don't know if I want to ride the horse.
Well, that's the way I am too. So when I went to Mongolia the first time, I went twice and I did the officials race at the end of the event both times, right? And I raced the other officials. So we did like 3 kilometers at a gallop or whatever. The first time they had to trick me on a horse. They like literally, they're like, we're not racing now. It's going to be fine. And then the next thing I know, they're like launching me on top of a horse. And I have video. I was having a panic attack and my horse, they bob their heads. They're used to the flies out there. And I was just like, I got nothing. I got no control. We're just going to do our thing. And then I did it. And it was fine. Once we started galloping, I was like, I got into a groove. And then the next year I was like, let's do this. And it was awesome. But just thinking about riding a Mongolian horse in Mongolia was literally enough to traumatize me.
Yeah.
What if I told you were going to do it tomorrow? Would you go for it?
I would do it again. I would.
Oh, yeah.
I would do it again.
Oh, yeah, you would.
Yeah, and I 100% want to go back to Mongolia. It was the biggest thing I did outside my comfort zone up till now, and I regret nothing. But I think we all have to kind of step outside of our comfort zone in order to grow. Will maybe just had a little bit more of a room to grow than some of us.
He took his time. He went for the long, slow route.
I remember when I can't remember her name right now, but when the woman who was CEO of Yahoo took it over. It was like several years ago, like 10 years ago. And I remember reading an article about her, and she was quoted saying something like, everything I've ever done that's been worthwhile has scared me before I did it. And I think that's true, you know, like it's okay to like do something you're scared of.
Yeah, that's how you grow, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, there's got to be some limitations. But so, I don't know. I get this a lot because I have a timid writers community.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people always ask me to do public speaking, and I don't want to because I'm not a teacher. I can't. I'm just living by example about what I do for myself. But one of the things I tell people is you can set up a goal for yourself that's a little bit outside your comfort zone, but like have maybe a larger goal to work towards because you got to take baby steps to get there. If you think about the biggest goal, you might freeze and just not do any of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely think that's true.
So I'll just say one thing about how I was scared, how a lot of the anxiety on Pony Express Trail was that like getting a horse hurt, you know, like some kind of bad accident where I would have to deal with a horse in really bad shape. And I finally realized that the only way that I can like get any kind of inner peace here is to just trust myself that I'll be able to handle it when it comes. And you know, you just have to trust in yourself.
Isn't that the biggest thing?
That's the biggest thing. And if you can convince yourself that you will be able to handle it, I think most of us will be able to handle it.
That's so true. I think and this is something that I've said 1,000 times, is that it's not that I don't trust my horse. It's that I sometimes don't have enough confidence in myself when I should.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never trust my horse.
No, I trust my horse more than I trust myself sometimes.
Both of you, I wish you both could meet Chicken Fry because he is such
let's go.
He is such a sensitive horse. You know, we taught during the pandemic, one of our good friends brought her 8-year-old daughter who didn't know how to ride. She learned to ride on Chicken Fry. And he was the best horse in the world for it. You know, he was so quiet. Like when he goes down a slope or something, he's so careful with his feet. He lets her spin around up there. So I don't know. It was great to see. You know, he's a very smart horse, and he's the kind of horse that most of all of us need, frankly. But anybody who lacks confidence in the saddle, he can give it to him.
Oh, and those horses are worth so much. They're truly worth their weight in gold.
He has a sign on his stall that says, "Not for sale."
Does everybody try to buy him from you?
I don't think nobody's asked me. I think they know that I love this horse, you know, like more than almost anything. So I don't think anybody would ask, but he would be a very easy horse to sell. He'd be a very easy horse to sell.
Well, also now he's famous. He's in a book.
That's right.
Maybe there should be Breyer models of him. I think that would be cool.
That's what I told him on Pony Express Trail. I was like, Chicken Fry, when this is over...
Did you?
Disney's going to be making a movie out of you. There'll be little Breyer horses. Chicken Fry and Badger. You know, the adventures of Chicken Fry and Badger.
Hey, that's a great kid's story. That's the perfect title for a kid's series.
That writes itself, man.
Yeah, exactly.
On the Pony Express Trail.
Now you've got one book under your belt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm just thinking about the number of adventures that you guys had, and each one could be its own little book. What is such a fun idea. Let's do it. Yes.
Let's do it.
We'll just add that to our long list of projects that we're all going to do together when we all move to
I love how we're
Arizona,
volunteering
and we all
ourselves.
live with Chicken Fry and Badger and write books together. Heather and I are kind of impulsive.
We are. Well, that's how I ended up doing half the things that scare me, because I just decided I was going to do it. If I think about it too much, I won't do it. It's like jumping into the deep end of a pool. I don't wade in. I just go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to do that a little more, but yeah, pretty much. It's all the adventures have been just not saying no.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people now. They say, you've done so much. I say, well, I say yes a lot when I shouldn't. So
I stopped doing that, which is good. But at the end of the day, I think saying yes to something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable is definitely a way to help you grow. Again, I'm a planner, so sometimes that's what helps me. Alternately, I just jump right in. So I guess you get which Heather are we going to get that day? I don't know. But it's interesting that you didn't do too much planning when it came to the Pony Express. But I know a lot of Mongol Derby riders. They plan for months to go to that. How was that for you? Did you plan?
So there's a difference between preparation and planning, because the Mongol Derby, no one knows the course. You can't really until you get there. So you can't really anticipate that, we'll be crossing this mountain range on this day. You can anticipate that it's going to be really hard and that you're going to have to ride like 100 kilometers per day on like little feisty horses. But you prepare. And that's the same thing with the Mongol Derby, is that you have to know like how to use your GPS unit. You have to make sure you have extra batteries for it. You have to make sure you don't lose it. You have to make sure you have pills for when you get dysentery. You have to make sure you have, like Advil. That's a big one. You like sleeping pills, like all this stuff, and then the right insulation and socks and all that. But I did plan for the Mongol Derby. I wanted to win the Mongol Derby. I wrote a story about it for Outside Magazine, and when I pitched it, I was like, I'm 100% going to walk away with this race. And then we got there, and I came in last place because I decided not to hurry because I wanted to go have tea with everybody. And so we just cruised at the back of the pack,
right?
Having the best time.
That's how I run. That's how I run.
That was so much nicer than like
just snacks.
These endurance riders who were like hell bent on the finish line. And I was like, I think we just slow this down a little bit,
No, but I love that, because that's, for me, riding is enjoying the adventure, right? Like I have a girlfriend who, she and I don't ride together anymore because she is now all about winning. I want to experience it.
Yeah. I'm not very competitive in that way.
Yeah, and neither of us ever pass up tea time. So.
Oh no, I never pass up snacks and tea. No, never.
No, I don't. Competitive, that kind of goes away, doesn't it? I'm not very competitive anymore to a certain extent. And I used to be viciously ambitious.
Well, there's a difference, again, between ambition and competitiveness, right? Because we're all a little ambitious in our way. You have to set a goal and go for it. But it doesn't mean you're competing against other people.
True. I was viciously competitive. Let me rephrase that. Now I'm less of both. Yeah, I aspire to very little cross rails.
I aspire to one day get my thoroughbred off property.
Well, I haven't gotten that far either.
I'll do it again. Little things. But at the end of the day, I think, it's important to do things outside of our comfort zone. I mean, you got to know the horse you're with. I think that's hugely important. You're part of a team. I have one horse that he can do anything, and I laugh in the face of danger, right? But I have another horse that I would never put in that position. So I think it's important that you had your two boys and you got to do that. Now, how long did it take you? The Pony Express?
142 nights.
Wow.
So that's 5 months. So that was long enough, for sure.
Did you have Did you have a favorite, state or area that you stopped?
I'll tell you, Eastern Nevada was beautiful. 2019 is when I did the ride, and the West received a really good amount of rainfall that summer. So there was ample grass for the horses in a lot of places. In some places, no grass. But when I got to Eastern Wyoming, or Eastern Nevada, north of the town of Ely. Beautiful, beautiful country. A lot of grass, a lot of wild horses, which was kind of difficult, but I thought it was beautiful and very wild. And I loved it. But I thought there were so many beautiful places. I mean, the grasslands of Wyoming, South Pass in Wyoming was absolutely beautiful,
Yeah, the West is absolutely insane. I went in 2021 and saw a corner of it driving. I drove from Florida through up to Missouri and then west to Colorado, and then drove down to Albuquerque, and just I found out something about myself, which is that I'm really into rocks. Didn't know that. When I got into those canyons, I just lost my mind. I was like, look at the rocks. And then we drive past some more. Look at those rocks. Those rocks are red. I just lost it. So a big piece of me wanted to stay. What can I say? I'm an earth sciences nerd. Okay. It means a lot to me.
So
so I can't imagine immersing like that.
I mean, Nevada, the geology was absolutely stunning. Those mountain ranges, it looked like Mars, it's like riding over the surface of Mars.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful though.
What an amazing experience.
Envious of that.
And in some ways to kind of almost step back in time and remember, I mean, these Pony Express riders used to do this regularly.
Yeah. So I finished and I was like, the Pony Express is way more impressive than anything we basically can wrap our head around. I mean, running those horses 15 or 20 miles between stations through all that country that's still empty today, very remote. And to do it at night, in the winter, I just didn't know how they did it. And you can look at the records.
And it was different then too. Like they had, Native American tribes and buffalo everywhere. And I mean, imagine the risks.
Oh, yeah. Very dangerous job. Very dangerous job.
I think you did a really nice job describing a lot of that in the book, not just about the history and the incredible lonesomeness and risk of that job, but I really appreciated the historical record about buffalo and railroads and things like that. I was super into it. I was reading parts out loud to my husband. He was ignoring me, so it was really good. We spent some quality time together reading our books.
Marriage.
I got really excited. I was reading about the Great Basin or something. I got really excited and started reading out loud. Oh, and parts about how the grass grows. Yeah, I needed to. And the meridian where the rainfall changes. I had to stop and sort of document that for myself when I drove west. I was like, here we are.
Yeah. The 98th
so I would just
meridian.
love all of it. And I learned so much, with your little tidbits in there. I appreciated that. So, and I guess the most impressive part that we should talk about, honestly, is you did do some significant planning to cross the desert. And crossing the desert as a Pony Express rider must have been just talk about a life or death situation where they knew nothing can go wrong. I have to gallop across the desert now, just, I really appreciate the way you were able to plan ahead for getting your horses across the desert. Is extraordinary.
Oh, right. You're talking about hiring that young boy, the 17-year-old kid, to drop hay and water.
Yeah.
Off of,
I was
we used our cell phone images, and I was like, put the hay it was 90-pound bale of hay of grass alfalfa mix, like a 3-strand bale, and then 90 gallons of water. And they would drink almost all that water, but he had to put it in the exact spot for me to find it. And I paid him $500 to do it.
And you're out there just finding somebody to out there in general, but also please drive across the desert and make these GPS locations for me and unload all this hay and water.
But this is an example of where if you start asking the horse network or like the ranching network, say like, hey, I need somebody to do this. Do you know of anybody who might be up and capable of handling this? And they'll say like, well, my neighbor's got a kid who just graduated high school, or people will help you. And if they don't know, and I'll tell you one thing when you're traveling with horses and in a network is you can always call a large animal vet and say, do you have anybody there who can help me with whatever X problem is? Like there must be some vet techs there that are horsey people that can help me. And I'm looking for a place to stay here or whatever,
Oh, I guess we're really lucky
help
in our network.
I think that's a great idea. Like you got to ask for help and be okay asking for help.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Huge part of travel with horses.
I mean, I'm not afraid, but like I'm getting my trailer checked because I don't drive it more than 45 minutes because, frankly, my horses are not in the place to be riding anywhere outside of 45 minutes. But the preparation to getting me to get that maintained and get that checked and everything like that. I mean, you had so much to maintain while on your trip, and you're out in the elements and you got to keep track of everything. And were you able to replenish your stores as you stopped, at different places like Walmart?
Exactly. Like Walmart. And I would carry 8 days of food, and then I carried 2 extra dehydrated backpacker meals as like emergency rations. And so I definitely, I would get somewhere and I'd be like, so do you think you could give me a ride into town really quickly, or, get a ride to a grocery store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, let's tell everybody, like, what prompted you to do these things, to go on these adventures? Is this just something that you've always dreamed of doing, or do you like to challenge yourself? Like, what's the goal?
The short answer is I like to do fun things with horses.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
That's a great answer. I think, yeah.
I mean, I really I have much more fun with any experience if there are horses involved. So, yes. So traveling or whatever, trying to make a career in journalism or finding ways to better understand my own identity, or all of these things are better done with horses.
That's awesome. I couldn't agree more. I think that's very relatable.
And I really,
that's why we're like
I really want to, I do, like to challenge myself, but in a really predictable and conservative way. I played this game in Kyrgyzstan with a dead goat. Have you guys ever heard of that game? It's called Coke Baru. And you throw this dead goat.
Yeah, Ivo Marlowe told me about it.
Yeah, so Ivo, he knows about it as Buzkashi from Afghanistan. And I played it at the World Nomad Games in 2018 in Kyrgyzstan. And that scared me for sure. And I played it last year.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, it's super scary. If you Google it, it's like the scariest game on horses ever. But you can't beat the feeling afterward, when it's all over and you have something that no one can take away from you, you know? And that feeling is what I probably enjoy the most. Because I love being there with the horses, but the sense of accomplishment is like nobody can touch that,
Yeah.
And yeah, you got to have fun with it, right? Like it's got to be
Gotta
fun.
have fun with it. So Pony Express Trail was like 5 months of good, clean fun, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've definitely spent a lot of time in the Pony Express station near my dad's home. And I was obsessed with the Pony Express TV show when I was a kid because I had a crush on them. And
Yeah.
I just think it's super cool that people are still able to ride the trail today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Was that Hollenberg Pony Express station?
It was. Yep. Yeah, still is. So I was there last year, actually. I go out all the time. My dad grew up in Hanover, right across the street.
Absolutely. I camped in the front yard for 2 nights at Hollenberg Pony Express station.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to post. You'll have to send us any photos you have. We'll post it on our clubhouse. And I still go there every time and just visit. I grew up going there.
I think you should camp there, Heather.
I would camp there because my grandma's house is like a mile down the road. So if I get in trouble, I know I can call my cousins.
No.
There's a nice farm across the street too. So there's plenty of horses to look at.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
Well, I'm thinking about the
All right,
next.
so-
I'm thinking about the next project I want to do, and I want to ride the Silk Road in Central Asia.
Really? You're gonna go back out there and do the Silk Road this time?
I want to ride
That's cool.
from the Aral Sea, which is in Uzbekistan, to China, because this is where horses were domesticated, and there's a really strong horse culture over there.
Wow.
That'll be amazing.
Yeah. So what kind of a distance are we talking about if you compared that with this ride? That was 5 months.
So Claire, my
What are you
partner,
thinking?
is like, you can't be gone for 5 months again. We're not doing that ever again. So I was like, well,
Have her
4.5
come with
months, 4.5 months on the Silk Road is like pretty good. So it would be like, I don't know, I would move faster. I don't know. I have to figure this out, but I want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it would probably be a little bit of a mix between, the faster paces and then the slower paces, a little bit more of an endurance type ride, right?
Just hard to know. Hard to know until I start doing the research.
Oh, well, that'll be so interesting. I'll be very excited to kind of follow along. And, you got to make sure you got to have your GoPro with you so we can all see it.
Yeah. Yeah. GoPros are kind of a pain in the neck for me to use.
They really are the batteries. Well,
They are. You got to do it for the fans, man.
iPhone photos,
Lifestyle.
That's what I used to my iPhone more in Mongolia than my Nikon, so
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Always easier.
easier to carry.
Yeah.
But isn't this a danger of getting out of your comfort zone, is that you always want to go a little further, and now you want to trek across Asia on horseback? What's next, man? Mars?
Yeah, where's
this going to stop? Poor Claire.
So where is this going to stop?
Now he wants to ride under the sea.
After
Such a
Central
pain.
Asia, that will be like, nobody's getting any younger, right? And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but that will be like my last big trip, that will be,
Okay.
and then we can find other things to write
now.
about, the stuff closer to home.
Yeah.
But-
South America's waiting.
Patagonia. I'm just,
I've thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing places you could still ride and horse cultures and things like that. I have a few friends that I met through Mongolia that are riding out in South America coming up this year. And there's a couple of rides out there, actually. So you never know, but you're always good to leave your options open.
That's right.
That's what I try to do.
Well, Will, you'll have to tell us and all of our listeners where they can find you so they can follow along on your adventures.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me on Instagram at Will Grant of the West.
That's quite a title. I like that.
It's catchy. I like that.
Yeah. A little bit of like a 30s Disney hero there. Like
well, his horses are going to have their own Disney movie. So
I know. We got to make this happen.
So
we got to go. We got to go visit. I want to meet Chicken Fry.
Claire just started an Instagram account for Chicken Fry and Badger, and that's at @chickenfry_and_badger. So you can see, because Claire is now
both of those.
Yeah, Claire is now jumping very small jumps and cross rails on Badger, and it's fun for both of them.
Oh, Claire sounds like my kind of girl. I'll be honest. I like Claire already.
There's a dog named Danny. And Jax. Oh, this is a great account. Chicken Fry and Badger. Look it up, guys.
And Will Grant of the West. We don't want to forget Will. Thanks so much for coming and chatting with us about your adventures.
No, thank you for having me. So good to talk to you both. This is fun conversation for me, for sure.
For bonus bitch time with Heather and Natalie, all you have to do is visit patreon.com/adultingwithhorsespodcast. We try to make it easy by making everything as long as possible. And it'll ask you for $5 a month. And that is going to cover all of our extra time that we spend coming up with really bitchy answers for you.